The story that changed the course of history.
And now it's breaking box office records while elevating international awareness of the Gem City. And WGEM's Raja Maples joins us live from AMC Movie Theater in Quincy to explain. Raja.
Oppenheimer is the true story of the U.S. developing atomic bombs to end World War II. Quincy native Paul Tibbets was the pilot of the plane that dropped the first bomb, putting Quincy on the map in more ways than one.
Paul Tibbets, a Quincy native, is a man who really changed history.
Quincy University history professor Dr. Justin Coffey says the new Oppenheimer movie brings history to life through the power of storytelling.
Paul Tibbets maintained for the rest of his life that dropping the bomb was the right thing to do, whereas Oppenheimer immediately expressed regrets and was remorseful. So history is very complicated. A movie like Oppenheimer really does an excellent job of bringing that home. And you can credit Paul Tibbets for playing an extraordinarily large role in ending World War II. He was a man of great courage. Remember, he was warned that he might not survive the blast from the atomic bomb, but he went ahead and did it.
The story also raises Quincy's visibility in a highly competitive tourism market. Holly Kane with the Quincy Convention and Visitors Bureau created these promotional brochures 6 years ago. They outline interesting stories and people of Quincy's past.
They do elevate our history. Visitors come in, they want to know people of Quincy, and so it is important. It's important to our locals too to know the stories and our history of Quincy and the famous people that have come born and raised here.
Kane says her office plans to republish this brochure this fall with additions including Quincy native Paul Tibbets.
This is my favorite piece. Really just sharing history in a fun manner.
Oppenheimer is playing at several movie theaters throughout the tri-states right now.
Okay, thank you, Raja. And by the way, you can learn more about Paul Tibbets at the Historical Society of Quincy and Adams County.